the GDP data came, and the sad thing is that the GDP data came at 21 months low. Higher GDP means economic activity is higher. When economic activity is higher, people will be selling more goods, and economy is better and the people will be getting more money. When they get the more money, they are likely to spend more money. And when they are likely to spend more money, it will lead to higher inflation. So it means that if the GDP is higher, usually the inflation will be higher. On the other hand, if the GDP is lower, which means economic activity is not good, people are not producing more goods. People are not buying more goods, which means less economic activity, which means less money with the people. Less money with the people, which means they will not be able to spend more money. So therefore, the inflation will be falling. So this is the general trend in any economy. But what is happening in India? On one side, GDP is lower and inflation is higher. I heard the interview of Nestle CEO where he said, middle class purchasing power is decreasing. Middle class is coming down in India. The number of middle class is coming down in India, and this is the reason Nestle did not do well for the past 6 months. And not only Nestle, if you look at Hindustan Unilever, ITC, none of the FMCG companies have done well. So in fact, in the month of October, FMCG index has fallen more than 10%, which never happened even in 2008 recession and 2020 coronavirus period. Because usually in the falling market, FMCG index rises up. So there is something not going right in India at this point of time. So India's GDP has fallen to 5.4%. And now this is a very dismal growth rate for a growing economy like India. And this is going to have serious repercussions on our economy going forward, on the investment climate. If you have money in the Indian stock market or any form of investment in India, this video becomes really very important. Now there are 3-4 central questions that will come. Number 1 is to why the India GDP is growing so slowly. What is the difference between like a 7% growth rate which was estimated by RBI itself? So 5.4% आया है, तो 1.5% का difference क्यों? The key important question is that what impact is it going to have on the Indian stock market? Your investments, very important point. And the third and final, what is the economic strength looks like going forward? So I am going to give you my take. Let's start the story by understanding the India and China's growth history. So in the year around 1960, both India and China were similar sized economy. The nature of our economy was primarily agrarian, which means that we were mostly farmers. But in the last 50 odd years, China has a leapfrogged. Now the total GDP of China is approximately $19 trillion and India's GDP is somewhere around $4 trillion. So there has been almost 5x difference between India and China. Now, so then a natural question comes that okay, what did China exactly do to leapfrog and why can't we do it? The answer is very simple. India spends roughly $12 billion to educate roughly 1.4 billion population, and now if you look at China, that over the last few decades they have been spending a lot of money in education. And to give you some numbers, China spends roughly $900 billion to educate the same approximately 1.4 billion population. So India $12 billion and China is spending roughly $900 billion. Again, a lot of counter questions will start. China's size is very big. GDP is very big. So for example, if you look at recent stats, then what is it that we are able to uncover well as a percentage of our GDP? We are only spending 4.6% on education, whereas China on the other hand, despite having almost 99% literacy rate, they are still spending 10% plus of their GDP on education. Now this indicates the priority of the governments. I'm not taking a dig at any government. I'm just generally presenting you this picture. This is one of the foremost reasons why we are lacking in innovation, why we are unable to be competitive. Whatever limited resources we have, we kind of slush that away in terms of demanding for more reservation. Demanding like Ladli Beti, Ladla Beta Yojana and all that stuff that is getting us nowhere. And as a result, now we are in a situation where that despite being a low income country, our GDP is only growing at the rate of 5.4%.